Get a 5-minute business book review, pivotal moments with failed businesses, and hear an interview with a business disruptor who will share their $10,000 mistake. This is the Forward Motion Business Show with Professor Ken and Professor Paul A. Marino. Hit new heights. Start with Forward Motion.
So I think that the three key takeaways from what I'm hearing is we need to be involved, and we can be involved in all kinds of different levels. I love the idea of the pizzeria saying food. I mean, you wouldn't think of that, but then if you think about the whole pandemic stuff, restaurants were contributing that way to help out the first responders and all the healthcare workers and things like that. So that's an interesting thing. I mean, they have food, they're making food. Why not contribute that way? That's an easy way to contribute. Of course, the time and effort that you put in to help, that would be a second way that you can be involved. And I think from my discussion here, the most important thing is to be aware and to be cognizant and to make yourself understand what's going out there, because it could be.
And it's scary, right? Like that whole, it's like one of those things like, no, I'm going to keep it over here because I don't want to know about it. But, it's one of those really, really important things that we need to be talking about and learning about.
And so I grew up in New York. We normally we see something right next to us and we're like, oh yeah, that's not me, so I'm gonna leave that alone. But you can't. I don't think
I lived in Queens for 7 years.
So I did too. I'm from South Ozone Park, so we're neighbors.
Oh, nice.
So it's something that we can't ignore. So I appreciate the time. So we have a few minutes left, and we normally talk about a couple of things in the business world, and I would love to get your input from your point of view here. And one thing we want to talk about is failures in the business world. And there was one incredible, in my opinion, massive failure, and I don't even know how familiar you are with this, but the name of the company was Quibi. Quibi, I believe it was Quibi. So Quibi meant quick bites, and the whole concept of this, we talked about the kids on devices. The whole concept of this company was to create content that was no more than 10 minutes that you can look at from your phone. And you could look at it. They had this technology. You could look at it vertically or horizontally, but it's a quick 10-minute piece. And Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katzenberger. Meg Whitman, grew eBay into what it was, and Katzenberger was, Lion King and Shrek and all these. They were leading that company. And guess how much they raised to get that company together?
I don't know. You're going to put me on the spot.
Just pick a number. If you were raising a company, what would you raise?
$100 million.
Yeah, exactly. $1.7 billion.
Wow.
So $1.7 billion.
They failed within the first year.
I mean, they could have given me $100 million. I would have made it work.
So it failed within the first 7 months.
Wow.
So here's the interesting thing about that is, we try to take away some lessons from that whole thing, and just to give you some more background on that whole thing. So they wanted to create this special content, these 10-minute things. They got some famous people to create. Of course, it wasn't the best stuff. It was just stuff that the major studios wouldn't buy. But now here is a company going up against Netflix, going up against Disney, let's say. So they raised $1.7 billion, and we're sitting here. Well, I'll take, $100 million would set me straight for my entire program for years. $1.7 billion in that industry was not enough. Netflix spends about $15 million on new content, 15 billion rather, on new content a year. So you had that going against them. And then they launched in April of 2020. So their whole business model, this is where I think everything sort of came apart. Their whole business model was, well, if I'm on my phone and I'm standing in line while waiting for the subway train, or on the subway, and I got 10 minutes to kill, instead of going to Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, I'll watch these Quibis for 10 minutes. Of course, the pandemic comes and hits in April of 2020. Not a lot of us were standing around.
No, we're Netflix and chilling now.
Yeah, exactly right. So I think it's a whole interesting thing, and we take failure away from that. So timing, I think, is there. Timing and understanding your demographic. The other thing, again, and Paul, I'll let you chime in here as well, is they targeted the younger. Their purpose was to target the Gen Zs. So they wanted to go after the tweens, the 15 to 19-year-old, and they thought they understood what they would look, and they figured, well, we could take some market share away from Instagram and all that, but they just weren't able to do that, and they failed there. So that was at least a rejection of big tech in a way that I thought was interesting. So I don't know what your takeaway of that whole situation is, Paul.
Well, I think they launched at a difficult time. They launched into a market where there was a lot of streaming product, but I think the bottom line for them, the product that they launched just wasn't that good.
Yeah, that's true. And it comes down to product. It always comes down to product. If your product is crap, then you're not going to get sales. I mean, that's basically the idea. So I think it's an interesting, we don't really know a lot about it yet, but it was I was one of the first subscribers. They sent me a private invitation and I subscribed, and I think I had free content for like 90 days, and then they still wanted to charge me $8 a month for it. I'm like, I can go to YouTube for free.
Yeah. Right. That's what I was thinking. That's so I was thinking that. I said, oh,
why do I want to pay you $8? It's like my wife is a big Sirius fan, the XM radio through the car. She gives them $8 a month. I'm going, what's wrong with you? You could get it for free. Stream it from Pandora, from Spotify. Even Spotify charges you now. So I think that's really interesting. And then, so the other thing we do is we talk about a business book, and I think this book we picked this week really helps us pull everything that we talked about together quite nicely. It's called the Power of Positive Thinking. It's by Norman Vincent Peale. It's been around ever, but it's a really incredible book because it talks about 4 or 5 principles that ties everything together. The first principle that we could share is the ability, know your ability and know what you can do and visualize all that and be positive, even in a negative world. And I think that the discussion here is timely, because if we talk about these young ladies who are in this situation, how do they remain positive in all this negativity, and what do they do? Because it's not just a business concept, it's a life concept.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all of us. We just went through 18 months. Maybe you could argue we're still going through this 18 months of pandemic. How did we stay positive? And then if you're in that other situation, you have another layer of complexity of all kinds of worries that you don't have normally. So how do you stay positive in that whole situation?
It's so hard. So positive thinking, actually, I'm in a course, I'm getting my certification as an international life coach, and I like really around joy and how do you bring in joy and bring in more joy, right? That law of attraction. So it all starts with positive mindset. And I can't speak for these girls, right? I don't know. I'm not able to walk in their shoes, but for myself, I know it all is rooted in gratitude. And if I can be grateful for anything, my breath, my pillow, my bed, it allows my mind to really kind of focus on what's important.
Yeah. And that's another concept in the book. It's visualization, and visualize where you are and how you can be. And something else I read years ago is everything we value, everything that's valuable to us, we don't pay for it. It's all free. Our relationships, the love that we have for one another, our health, right? Our brain, our thought pattern, we don't pay anything for that. Well, unless you get married and you get divorced, and that love could cost you something. I don't know. I've only been there once, so
only
this is
half
round
of
two. Yeah, so it depends. But everything really, if we think about, we write down what we can't live without, the valuable stuff. It's all something that's free. So it's not, and we have to stay positive because we go in different ways. And I just think that's a really powerful book because it has 5 simple messages, and I think it applies to everybody, and not just a business book, but just a everyday book to understand, right, Paul?
Well, I always reflect back on a famous saying by Henry Ford. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's important. We've gone through, look, we all know we call it the new normal now. I don't even know if it's normal what we're experiencing, going through, whatever this is. But we are all changed one way or another coming out of the pandemic. As individuals, we know the businesses are changed. So where do we go from here? But if we stay stuck in where we were, we're never going to achieve wherever we want to achieve, right? So I guess the future looks pretty good, depending on what you're looking at, right?
Well, that's
your
like
mindset.
your mindset. You know,
Right.
that's so interesting that you said that. You know, I feel that they're really, it's like an inside job.
Yeah.
You know,
That's great.
It
It's
is-
an
it is
inside
an
job.
Inside job.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And if you don't wake up, listen, if you don't do those affirmations or whatever it is, you got to know who you are. And I do believe that you can spiral one way, or you can elevate another way. And if you say, oh my God, all these bad things are happening to me, there may be some type of connection from bad thing number 1 to bad thing number 5. Possibly,
Well, I
right?
think people have to make a decision. Are they at cause for their life, or are they at effect?
Yes, that's
And,
great.
you know, are you like a victim of your situation, or are you in control and is life happening for you? And I think that's a really important thing for kind of even business owners to, you know, oh, is all of this happening bad to me and this is because I'm going to fail? Or is it, these are lessons that I need to learn, that I need to overcome so that I can actually succeed. And I think that's the mindset, right? We can think of so many things that are going to go bad or wrong or in the future. And 90% of that time, nothing happens.
That's right.
And we spend so much time just thinking about it.
And I just to, you know, as we get ready to wrap up our first broadcast back from being out of the COVID, I remember an older fellow was at a company of mine. He told me, and this is about business, but what he said applies to everything we're talking about today too. He says, Ken, business is really easy. It's the people in the business that make it pretty complicated, right? Absolutely. And I think it's that human element that we all missed during this pandemic, that we don't know coming out of this what's going to, you know, how it's going to evolve yet. I haven't seen Paul in how many months? I mean, 18, 17 months.
You grew a beard.
And I grew a beard. I grew a beard. And I lost some more hair.
You have to show the...
And I lost some more hair.
He doesn't look like the person on the map.
I mean, I just hope that we're kinder, you know, that we're more patient.
That's right.
That, you know, like, don't lay on your horn in traffic. I blow bubbles in traffic.
That's great.
Because I like open the window, I blow bubbles because I figure the person behind me is like, where are those bubbles coming from? And I feel like hilarious. I brought some joy.
I love
and
that.
It's
great.
like patience, you know,
patience.
we needed that. We were always rushing, I feel like, before COVID.
And I think now, and hopefully we're at the end of this. Who knows? But well,
or maybe we're just at the beginning.
Oh, that could be interesting. Well, we just talked about staying positive. Well, why are you bringing us back to that? We don't know. But I think as we get ready to wind down here this episode, I think it just to tie it all together. When we say we have to be positive, when we say we have to make some type of impact, right? I think what else can we do? We should be involved in these places where we can make a difference. And maybe that's what we learned from this whole thing, right? It's not just about me going to work 9 to 5. We're learning that now, but it's not just about all these things. Maybe it's about helping the people that we need to help. Maybe that's the signal we're getting. I don't know, right? Maybe that's the signal we're getting.
I think you have to give back.
Yes.
I think if you're going to drink from the well, you need to put some water back.
Right. It's one of those things, right?
I think.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is sort of the end of this particular show, and I really appreciate your time here.
Thanks.
It was so great.
Yay, I love. I'll come back. You put a microphone in front of me, and I'm like, okay, we'll talk.
Yeah, we're gonna get you. Paul and I are gonna create some forward motion stuff. We're gonna definitely gift you with that as our first guest.
Yay!
Back in the studio.
I could like be dressed up as a unicorn.
We can get you an avatar. We can get you an avatar made. Absolutely, we'll get you a shield with a protective. With a, protecting the women behind you and stuff like that. We'll come up with a nice appeal there. So, well, thank you very much. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate it. And you'll definitely come back.
Yes, you too. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So this is Professor Ken. I'm saying goodbye. So long. I'll see you out there.
Professor Marino. See you next time.
We'll see you next time.